Hey, everybody, it is Friday night, and that means another episode of the Redox 5. I'm Dr. Maureen Hayek, coming to you from Galveston, Texas, and I'm joined by the regulars, Jim and Ann Glenn. Jim's our big money man, and Ann is our beautiful nutritionist and personal trainer. They're in San Antonio. And up in Washington State, we have Dr. Lee Ostler, dentist extraordinaire and author of several books on redox, including Redox Matters, Healthy Matters, It Matters, a whole host of books. If you haven't had a chance to get them, go to redoxmatters.com and take a look at them. Every one of you needs to have these in your library so you understand the significance of what we're talking about. But tonight we have an incredible call for you tonight, an incredible show. We have our founder, Tyler Norton, on, who's going to kick off the new year. It's a new year, a new you, and we're going to talk about the science behind this product, why this product is so significant, and why it makes sense for you to get involved with this for yourself, for your own health, for your family's health, and for the health of those that you love and care about. Even the people you don't care about, they need it too. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Tyler Norton, our founder, and let him give a little bit of background. He's got an incredible background in finance and has been a part of this for the past 14 years. So Tyler, come on and take it away. Would love for you to give a little bit of background information, and then we'll have some questions for you.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, Happy New Year, everyone. Are you feeling positive? I'm looking at your chat and I'm seeing people from all over. Hello, Beth from Kentucky. I see you on there. And Spokane and Fort Worth, Nashville, Oklahoma City, Brisbane. Somebody's across the way for us. It's good to have all of you with us. Happy New Year to all of you, to those of you on the call joining us. Couldn't be happier to spend a few minutes with you tonight. As Maureen said, I'm a co-founder here at ASEA. I started this business with my dad, as many of you know, almost 14, 15 years ago now, when you really think about the pre-launch of the company. And it's been nothing but pure joy to take something that the world needs and find and connect it to people who need it. And I know that if you're on this call for the first time this evening or trying to get exposed to us, you're in the right place. I hate to tell you, it's probably not about you. It's probably about somebody you love or know, or to Maureen's point, someone you don't know yet that you're going to meet. But I just believe so wholeheartedly that if you've been exposed to this, if you're intersecting with someone, it's a really important inflection point in your life. And so we're thrilled you're here tonight. Maureen, you mentioned my background. I did not start in this space. Similar to Jim, I was in the retail financial services space for many years. I was what they call a chief distribution officer. So I had several channels that we would distribute financial products through. And frankly, thought that was going to be my career. At the time, I was probably, 36 years old. I was a CDO and had a good career path laid out in front of me in an industry I didn't think was going away soon. And we found a technology, my dad and I, we were doing a consulting engagement, and it just changed everything. He was a very successful retired executive with Kraft Foods and in consumer packaged goods. Really, really storied career. And he became convinced long before me, I should admit, that he found something that really needed to go to the world. And little did we know at the time that we would be bringing a breakthrough product into a marketplace that was probably several years ahead of its time. And now we're seeing a whole host of evidences that the world is catching up, at least in terms of acceptance and understanding and appreciation of what is redox science. And so I'm just thrilled to be with everybody here tonight, and love those on the call that have been with us and are loyalists to what we do here, and certainly welcome all those that are getting exposed to us for the first time. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Tyler,
Go.
real quick, in a nutshell, I usually ask the silly questions, but in the beginning, there's, like you said, new people that are watching this. In your words, what are these redox molecules? What do they do? Why should anybody be watching this and listening to us?
Well, at a very basic level, everything that we offer, your body is doing right now in varied amounts. As you get older, you're creating less of these very, very powerful and important signaling molecules. And early on, I remember my father saying, we are creating an on-off switch for the cell and allowing the cell to reboot itself. if you think about all the maladies and challenges that people deal with on a daily basis, and you get cellular about it, meaning you get low and say, what is it really about? It's cellular. Every major issue anyone has is cellular, and it's cellular dysfunction. It's cellular identity theft or identity crisis. Sometimes a cell isn't performing as its differentiation or specialization should do. And we found a product to supplement your body's ability to increase cellular signaling and communication. That includes repair, that includes replacement of a cell, and that can reboot a cell to its true identity and what it's supposed to do. And when you think about it, if our bodies are made up of cells, every organ is made up of a cell, differentiated though it may be, there's still fundamental elements about it, and our product is meaningful for all cells in the body. I didn't believe it at first, Jim. I thought it was too good to be true. And I have literally thousands and thousands of letters, and we now have plenty of science and books written like these books, and just so many things that we've caught up with, understanding, hey, we're in a really unique field, and these molecules will help you, people you love, and anyone else to increase the balance or homeostasis of their cellular function. And it's a beautiful thing.
Maureen?
Yeah, I was going to take advantage of you having a background in finance and Jim as well. The science here can be a little bit heavy, but it's foundational to our cellular health. And, to be well, you have to fix the cell. So, as you said, this is something that is happening in every cell, but, less of as we get older. But this is an incredible breakthrough. And this is something that was discovered and that your dad had the foresight to take over the technology and then to build upon that. How do you see this as someone who has a background in finance as an opportunity for people? Because not only is this an incredible health science breakthrough, but it's also an incredible opportunity for people who want to be part of a movement, part of something that's bigger than themselves, and to, as we love to say, make a living while making a difference.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, Mike. My dad was the head of strategy for Kraft Foods, which at the time was a $40 billion enterprise. He reported directly to the CEO of the global enterprise and spent decades really in very strategic roles. And I tell you that because he would not have invested his time or energy in this unless he could see strategically, that is to say, into the future, why this was going to increase in relevance and why it would be a unique opportunity to build a business around. So my dad has a really interesting history. He was a master at what he called mega trends. And he would spend a ton of time looking for what are the biggest trends that are going to drive a whole series of decisions, of market reaction, of resource attention. And I'll never forget it. He put together a presentation, and some of you might have seen this. I still have a copy of it. And he said, I want to tell you the trends in the world which will underscore and foreshadow why ASEA will grow. And this is, you got to remember, this is a saltwater product. It tastes like pool water. No one could understand it in the early years. It's not an easy thing to explain. And yet we've gotten better and now we can explain it very easily. But Dad didn't know all that. He just knew what it could do. And then he went out and said, I want to see if there are trends in the world that can point to this. So I'll never forget, he went out and said, the first trend is exploding world population. And then I said, well, that seems kind of dislocated. And he said, wait a minute. If the world has more people on it than ever before, okay, we're stressing the world, the ecosystem, the climate. I mean, he said, that's the reality. And he said, an increase in population, right, is creating a whole different environment for our bodies to operate in, including the way food is produced, including the things we experience on a day in, day out basis with things, pollution, overcrowding. And he said, what's going to happen is there's going to be continued, challenges on our own bodies. Then he said, at the same time, medicine is going to increase. And so life expectancy will grow as you've got more people. So you're stressing a system, you're increasing life expectancy, and you've got a whole world of people that are coexisting, needing to find means of food. Food is becoming less organic. less healthy. And so ironically, while medicine is improving from the perspective of lengthening life, quality of life and health is in decline. And he was looking at megatrends. Now, remember, my dad would take those and he would intersect them. And he would say, when these 4 or 5 megatrends hit each other, what happens? And by the way, he didn't stop there, Maureen. He said, what else? And I kept thinking, Dad, these are so big as to be overly abstract. He's like, no, watch when they intersect. You got more people than ever before living longer, but in a stressed environment, in an environment where there's less things promoting organic and wellness and health. Then he said, now take it a step further. What's happening to sovereign debt? And I was like, now you're really out there. And he said, countries are increasing in sovereign debt. They don't have the money to address major issues they have on their own. And then he pointed to healthcare. And he said, if they can't fund the healthcare of the people, and you have more of them who are in declining health, what is the answer? And he said, the answer is people have to take ownership of, and there will have to be products and people that take ownership of their own health at a different level, because they can't expect governments or big industry to help. And really what he was saying was this product set, in particular, the Redox products we started with, he said, will be so relevant to so many people that as they get older and as the system can't really handle the increase of pressure on the healthcare system, people are going to have to realize how to take care of themselves. And I'll never forget, he and I volleying on it. And he said, it's a multi-billion-dollar opportunity. And he was right. He was absolutely right.
It's great.
On that, I re-listened to the phenomenal interview you had with Alan Noble a couple of weeks ago. The acceptance and or the bell curve.
Yeah.
We're still way to the left side of the bell curve. Would you not agree?
Yeah, but
the percentage of people that know about this in 33 countries is so minuscule. But yet when you bring a category creating technology that no one else has, then it's going to be a little bit slower. And that's the first 13, 14 years of the company. Where are things going?
Well, if you think about it, all those trends have played out. And now what you have is, to give you an idea, the whole underscoring technology of this is redox biochemistry. And redox, of course, is a portmanteau for reductants and oxidants. The entire world has been focused on oxidants in the sense that we need antioxidants.
Right.
That oxidants are inherently bad. The fact of the matter is you die without oxidants, okay? Imbalance of those things can be bad, but what creates the balance is reductants. And so really what's happening now is there was a huge overemphasis, both in science and in marketing, on the oxidant side of the redox story. And it went so far that marketing entities and companies like my dad used to work for would look for any ingredient in a product like Cherry 7-Up, and they would say, okay, it's an antioxidant product, because there was enough acceptance in the world around the notion of antioxidants are good, right? And so every marketing entity in the world was starting to ride that wave, because people had generally come to know, even though antioxidants can be a very technical term, it became a household term that people just immediately assumed antioxidants are good and oxidants inherently are bad. What's interesting is that was all born of a bias towards essentially a theory of aging that was kind of tied to free radicals, which were in fact these oxidants that were not healthy. And the society that does all the research around that space was called the Society for Free Radical Biology, had renamed itself 5 years ago to the Society for Redox Biology. You now have tons of universities, right, setting up centers for excellence with grants from the government for redox life science research, biology, and health. Why? Because we were overemphasizing the antioxidant story and not realizing that it's a balance between reductants and oxidants. So when you think about this, we're 14 years ahead today of anyone else in this space. We're doing research today towards products that are already commercialized and ready for you to build a business on. Okay, so you talk about what does it take to start a business today? I've done entrepreneurial advisory work for years. I launched the U.S. Women's Chamber of Commerce years ago and sat for 8 years on the advisory board. Really invested in entrepreneurial opportunities for women and for men. I've done nonprofit work for youth and entrepreneur. I understand the notion of starting a business, and it is hard. It is a massive lift. And you need a lot of things in your favor to actually step off into a business on your own. In this instance, what do we have? We have the most differentiated product in life sciences in the last 100 years, I believe. No one can touch it. Patent protected and super protected by tons of trade secrets with a 14-year head start on anybody else, right? While others are still talking about antioxidants, exogenous, or things that come from outside the body we're creating massive impacts inside the body with native molecular structures that your body already has. No one else has this product, right? No one else can make it. They would never be able to figure it out with all the trade secrets. Now, take that alone and say, would you want to start a business if that was a true profile? Let's say you're a cynic and you say, okay, that sounds intriguing to me. Okay, now the infrastructure is set up for you to sell that around the world into 33 markets. Okay, and you can be paid, even though someone is actually buying that product in a different currency, you can be paid here, and I'll administer the compensation back to you. Okay, what else, right? Oh, we have science and research that's constantly happening that will support the claims and story that you're telling to other people to share. We have the ability to create cultural and community structures that can support you and lift you and help you. We've got training and support. We have platforms and technology. If you want to be an extreme, almost a direct player with just using social media, you can. If you want to be belly to belly and person to person, it's entirely available to you. It's just, you stop and think about how hard it would be to start a business today. And then you say, what if it's all built? And the only thing lacking is what my old boss used to refer to as vitamin D, which was discipline. And he would say to me all the time, Tyler, the world is vitamin D deficient. They lack discipline. But when someone, in his instance, he was from Russia and saw the world where he lived in Russia, where there was very little opportunity to differentiate and grow ahead. And then he moved to the US. And within a matter of years, he was a senior vice president who I reported to in a 160-year-old company. And he said, I hate to say this, but in large measure, people have lost their vision of what opportunity looks like. And he said, if you have enough vitamin D, and what I'm telling you is all you got to bring is your vision and your commitment. You're going to impact people. You're going to create a business for yourself that is incredibly advantaged. And you need businesses that have an uneven playing field. I had a buddy that used to tell me all the time that when he played football as a kid in Brooklyn, they didn't have a flat field. So it was a big deal whoever got the downhill advantage on this little field where they'd play football. And he would say, you know what? If you can get an advantage, we would flip a coin or we would do rock, paper, scissors to see who was coming offensively down the hill, and we had an advantage. What if we have products, business platform, a background in science, a world, megatrends, all pointing to unfair advantage, literally an uneven playing field where we have the downhill advantage? It literally is calling for anyone who's genuinely entrepreneurial, not afraid to admit if they lack vitamin D and they're willing to work on their discipline, because it's not just going to come to you. You got to want it. You got to go get it. But I believe it's the most unique entrepreneurial opportunity in the world. And it's something you can compound, you can grow, you can leverage it into real passive and meaningful income for your family. I think it's amazing.
Kyle, I've approached people with try to come up with the most amazing idea that you could ever come up with for a business. And it would have to be in the health and wellness. I mean, you couldn't come up with anything that would be bigger than what we have today. Nothing comes close.
Well, and I certainly not with the cost of entry. It was such low barriers to entry, because if you've got $50 million and you want to start a SaaS company or a biotech company on your own, okay. But if you're like any one of us, and honestly, this is truly how I feel about it. You're coming out of business and saying, I don't have a ton of money to get it started. All right. With very little entry capital, very, very low entry capital, you have an entire infrastructure built around you to support you. And you've got the product set, we deliver it, we ship it for you, we pay people, anything you need to do to start your own business. I met with a gentleman 2 nights ago that just sold a tech company that does all this back end work for small construction and like whether it's a roofer or an HVAC guy or a plumber. And I said, tell me about the business idea. He said, do you know how hard it is for someone who's hands-on day out, day in, day out, working as a blue-collar entrepreneur to then go back and figure out how to pay and how to administer all the things. And you say, I sat there and thought as he was talking, I said, we do it all. You got to bring your heart. You got to bring your love for people. You got to build a belief, not only in the products, but in yourself. And you got to get an increase in vitamin D in your diet and get disciplined about it. But everything else is built here for you. I literally do not believe there's a better opportunity for someone who really is looking for a way to impact others, uplift their own economic situation, and the sky's the limit. It's absolutely true.
One of the aspects of that, Tyler, is the evaluation of risk. Anytime someone is going to launch let's just say that you woke up one day and said, I need another business, or I need to transition into another field, or I broke my arms and I can't keep doing what I've been doing, so I need to do something. That the element of risk measures in, because anybody like Jim or a banker who's willing to put some money on the line, and whether it comes from the bank or your own capital, it still represents value or capital, as I see it. And so you're looking at that and saying, if I could shift some of the burden, some of the risk,
That's right,
to an infrastructure that was already established, that already had R&D and science and warehousing and shipping and point of sales and taxes and all the myriad of things that you're going to have to figure out on your own if you were intent on doing it that way. As you pointed, the cost of entry is really low, the risk is really low, and I don't think people, because they say, well, I have skills, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And it's like, well, go ahead, knock yourself out, but there's still that element of risk that you're putting your own stuff at major risk there. So could you comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, from a risk perspective, the whole point is what we used to refer to in the investment world was a risk-adjusted return. It was, people would say, well, this is a better return. And I would say, with what risk premium? What did you pay for that return? How much risk did you have to assume? So your points are beautifully stated. I think people need to understand that I find there's a lot of people that have traded the maybe for the sure. And they've given up on what they might be able to do if they were able to just believe again in that I might be able to do that. But the world forces people in a very early age to trade on that maybe for the sure thing. And then they get into life, and then they get into family, and they just the risks that they would have to take to move off of what they know is their sure bet every 2 weeks, 3 square meals a day and in a check, to go into this maybe we could do this. And so I believe the only way to really do that is to find a high risk adjusted opportunity, to your point, Lee, that isn't going to put someone into this real risky scenario. Keep doing what you're doing and start building this slowly and consistently, knowing that this could easily replace a part-time or full-time income. It can be done. And there are hundreds on this call tonight that are in the process of doing that, and several that have done it for sure. So you've got to look at this and saying, have you traded the maybe for the sure thing? And how many years have you done it? And you're going to be 5 years older 5 years from now, regardless. And it's so interesting to me to see people. I had a gentleman that worked for me that you could just see he gave up on the dream that he could do something on his own. But this is we've heard this, you can be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. and you can create an environment where people are cheering you on, wanting you to win. We're really deeply invested in people's cultural development, their human development. There's an element of humanity the way we do this that I think is very compelling. But to your point, people do the math and they price the risk and they say, I'm staying with the sure thing. And I'm not discounting them for doing that, because when you have kids and bills, and maybe you've got debt or student debt, and you say, I can't afford to take those risks. Well, guess what? We've created the conditions where you can.
Well, we'll jump off that for a moment, Tyler, and say, yeah, we could do the sure thing, but talk about leverage. It's like in doing your sure thing and trading, like if you were consulting, for example, I'll just do what I have done professionally, but I'll do it personally now, and I'll still be in business for myself. It's like, I don't care if you're walking the dog or teaching piano lessons or consulting, doing engineering or whatever it is. Talk about what this model presents from a leverage point of view.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really misunderstood. I think people misunderstand the potential of allowing something so naturally positive and meaningful and additive to people of all walks of life in terms of these products and the science. And that has legs of its own. It has its own life. It finds the people looking for it and needing it. And I'll give you a quick example. I took a text from a guy who is the father of a girl that played soccer with my daughter. Haven't seen him for 10 years. And this is probably 3 nights ago. I get a text and he says, you need to call me back. And then I called him and I said, boy, I haven't heard from you for years. How's your daughter? How's your family? And he said, I was taking down some holiday greetings cards that I got. And I saw a couple from North Carolina that when I was a young boy had just meant a lot to me. And they were dear friends. And he said her phone number was on the card and I thought I would reach out. And he reaches out and finds out, and he knows I run ASEA, and so he reaches out and she's talking about some health challenges. She might even be on the call tonight, I don't know. And she shares with him her beautiful story of how she struggled with some issues and she found ASEA, and it's made a huge difference. And he couldn't believe it, and he immediately called me. And I said, well, let's three-way call her back right now. Let's talk to her. So we called her back and we had this lovely conversation with a woman who had been dealing for years with challenges that were being helped by this company. She then proceeded to talk about other people that she spoke with that had issues, that were receiving a benefit from these products. And of course, people that spoke with her. If something has an impact that can begin to spread like that on its own, and if you can be essentially the initiator of that, and it starts to take its life moving forward, and participate economically in all of that, you've just scaled yourself, right? You've literally scale, meaning getting bigger in a consulting where it's one-to-one, or a professional corporation like an attorney who literally can't scale himself short of becoming a partner and hiring more attorneys because he can only charge more for his 1 hour a day or X number of hours. This is a business where you can economically participate in the activities of many, right? And really multiply yourself. And if you're quick to judge it, to indict it, it's probably, with all due respect, because you don't really understand it yet. But when you understand what a force multiplier is, right? In this business is a force multiplier, period, full stop. And a lever is a force multiplier, meaning I can put the same amount of pressure on a lever as I might be putting directly on a stone I'm trying to move, and the force is multiplied. ASEA is a force multiplier. It's a force multiplier in health. It's a force multiplier in your own unique individual potential. It's a force multiplier in your ability to earn money because of the leverage and potential of the business model. And honestly, all it takes is consistency, right? The grass is not greener, on the other side, it's greenest where you water it. So you keep watering it right here. And if you stay engaged, over time, you'll begin to sense it. It'll hit a tipping point where it will start yielding a leveraged return that's force multiplied. It's bigger than maybe you think. And I've seen it happen time and time again. If you think it's luck, I submit to you, it's not. It's not luck. It's hard work. It's vitamin D, discipline. It's belief and conviction. And then it's believing again in your maybe. because I've got news for you. It's not maybe. Every human being you meet has enormous potential, unspeakable potential. The world has taught them to accept less. The world has suggested to them, because of the risks and concerns, that every person you meet is literally filled with potential. And anyone on this call that's reaching or feeling, I was so disquieted as a young man. Like, I wanted to reach. I knew I could do and be more. I think that's the most universal DNA in all people. The system, the world, the way the world engineers people's opportunities and how they view those, coupled with risks and fear and setback. And before you know it, someone just says, I'm just going to settle right here for the maybe or the sure, because the maybe is just too far out there for me. And I think we're an enormous opportunity for people that have that inside of them, and that know that every day that they don't reach into their own potential, they're leaving a part of their own adventure left untold. And the beautiful relationships, all of you that I see now, all of the names on here, several sending hellos from chats, these are relationships around the world that have enriched my life, because my dad, honestly, was like, we're going to go do this.
I love what you're saying, Tyler. And, somebody put in the comments, is this about building your business? And I was thinking about how this relates to my career as a physician. I became a doctor not because of the benefits that it would give me in life, but because I felt drawn to it as something that I was supposed to do, a purpose in my life, a mission to help other people, to dive deep into the science of the body, how the body works, and then help people correct that so that they could have a better quality of life and a better quality of health. And when I came across this, I was put off, like so many people, I think, because it is what we call network marketing, or falls under that heading. We're really not. We're really a research and development company that uses that as our sales and marketing division, how we get the information out, because we have to educate people. And after being on the product and seeing what it did for my family, after a very short period of time, I felt as a physician that I had a moral obligation to let people know about this, because it was foundational. It was necessary to fix this first in order for anything else that we were doing for the person to work properly. And so it became a calling, it became a mission. And so, it's funny when I see people kind of sort of shy away from the business. Y'all, I've made a career out of helping other people. I never worried about how much I was being paid, because I was always doing my best to bring my best to the people that I was serving. And I do the same thing here. But like you were saying, as a physician, I could only see the people in front of me and make an impact on the person that I was dealing with at that time. Here, I can teach others who can turn around and teach others. And that magnifies my efforts immensely, thousands. And so it's incredible. It is a multiplier, and it's a very noble one, to be a part of this. And so I'm so thankful that I am a part of it, and that your dad had the foresight to see this, and that you guys brought this to us. So thank you so much.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
Tyler, could you follow up with that? If this is so wonderful, if this is so great, let me play just almost a devil's advocate. If this is so wonderful, why is it that yet not more people are just falling all over themselves to get at it? What is it that, how do we communicate this? Could you maybe give some tips and pointers to us and those who might be looking at this that are struggling with that? This should be gold and platinum in their hands, right? They would not even think twice about not doing it, yet many don't. So what is it that we need to do to improve our side of that communication?
Well, to be honest, I think the answer to that has more to do with increased activity than it does increased voicing. By that, I mean, not everyone, whether time, circumstance, or situation, or even disposition, it might be in the right position. So increasing activity to me is far more relevant than overplaying, like I've got to say it the right way so that someone hears it the right way so that someone's willing to move or act. That's my belief, because the time, circumstance, and situation of every person changes, right? And so the more people I'm speaking with genuinely from a place of conviction and concern for others will play a bigger role, I think, in growing this than necessarily trying to perfect the way you say it. I know that might sound odd, but in my career, and I've spent a lot of time in businesses that just require you to move. And so I could always tell when things weren't going well, it was because I wasn't out recruiting or driving or communicating and messaging to people. And it was really as much about your belief. And by the way, if you don't believe, then you should start there. And if you can't find your own experience, there's people in the chat that have said, hey, I'm still trying and haven't had an experience. Okay, share it with other people and continue there, and let the first wave of your sharing be, I'm searching for conviction builders, experiences where I can gain greater confidence and conviction in what this can do for people. Because I hate to say this, I would love to tell you it's one-to-one, and it is in some instances, but there's people looking for a specific result that haven't had it yet. But if we're all moving into this higher activity mode, sharing it with more and more people, I think, is going to play a big part. Now, science is already starting to come to our aid in terms of general science. And clearly the research we're doing is super compelling. We're one of one on a single first pass on a genetic pathway, and we're getting results. We've got 15 other pathways we know are also being affected. And the first one we chose, we got meaningful outcomes from. So I think my feeling is activity, high activity. We chose this channel, this way to take this biotechnology to the world. It's a biotech product, period, full stop, 100%. The company we bought it from was a biotech company. This is as legitimate a biotech product as there is in the world. We chose to distribute it through you. Why? Why not take it another route? Because it was so ahead of its time, it needed a story. And it needed its own path to get to the people who needed it. And it's so beautiful to see the natural way it has grown and reach the people who need it. I just think increasing activity more than trying to perfect your approach or message is the game. And I think people, the idea of talking about instead of doing. Imperfect doers move the world, right? But you all know that perfect is the enemy of good or great. And sometimes people are getting ready to get ready, and they're talking about. I'd much rather talk to somebody who literally just has a belief in their heart that they have something that can help someone. And then when you make that available to them, if they don't respond, stop trying to change their eye color and move fast, right? If you're on this call and saying, I don't believe this, okay, we love you. We want you to be successful. Move on. Go find something that floats your boat and fills your heart. But if you're in this, don't let other people control or influence the drive and belief that you have. And don't over-isolate any single person or any single conversation as an indication of what you're doing. You're not asking anyone's opinion. You don't read the editorial page. You're going. And when that's clear to people, it creates the conditions where I think people will sense this is real. Now, is it happening on its own organically? It is. And I can't tell you exactly why it's not viewed as clearly as it should be. But I'm also very comfortable with where we are today. I actually think this is the best opportunity in the world because there's still so much upstream market opportunity. And we're 14 years deep. And my production facility is, you can eat off the floor and is scalable with no additional cost. Like, we're ready. And I just think each of us have to have a greater sense of vision of what that means in our sphere of influence and go for it. And it'll take its own life from there. But if we're riding the clutch and trying to dress on a little too long and seeing if this fits, and, it's not on trial. Most of the time it's me that's on trial. And if I'm putting the vitamin D into it, I think it'll happen over time. But it really is a mirror business. You got to look in the mirror often and say, am I really doing this, or am I, expecting something from nothing? You got to go. You got to go out and go for it.
Well, that activity goes along with giving people an experience. And that's what's so neat about Renew 28. As we've heard other people say, get a tube, sample it on 10 people. There are 9 times out of 10, somebody's going to see changes, where the cell signaling is working. And even more results are going to come from 13 years ago. Jim has a really good intro video he does before we start an event, a meeting. And I listened to it. Trisha's on there, Denny's on there. I mean, it's a great video of what it's done for them then. And here we fast forward. Now we had, past that was Renew 28, and then now the Cell Performance and the Via line. And if people haven't tried the 15, the skincare, even more results would come if they would just get an experience. And like you said, more activity, finding more people to demonstrate. And more results than like that video. That video is like, what, Jim, 12 years old, 10, 12 years old. It's a really cool intro, but now you have that much more for people to go out and see what our company can do for them. So exciting things are going to happen for sure.
Tyler, you did a phenomenal chat a while back on possibilities and probabilities.
Love that one.
The fact that we have this, and it still would fascinate me with your dad, what made him do this? But the fact that it was, and you said a divine, which I believe that what we have is a divine gift. It's just so unique. It's so hard for people to believe that we have this. It just sounds crazy. It's salt water, Salt Lake City. It tastes like pool water, the icky pool water, the stuff, the crazy, the Back to the Future guy. What you thought of your dad, but the mind that he has to be able to see this and to map it out and to see where we are today with this, it lines up with where he knew this was going to go. But people don't realize how unique and once in a forever opportunity this is. They sometimes get hung up on, network marketing and you coming up with the beautiful next level marketing. But people still get hung up on, well, I tried that before, or I tried that stuff before. I've had 10 back surgeries. I've had 6 levels fused. I was addicted to pain pills. I tried a lot of stuff until this. I was still desperate. I was still willing to try. I kept my mind open and available to this. And it's changed everything. And I guess it just hurts that there's so many skeptics out there. And I know I was as well, and you were, and Maureen was, and Lee was, until we saw it work. But I just wish people wouldn't wait till they have such a point of desperation that, I'll try anything now. And so, but I just love that talk. Your dad thought of the possibility. He didn't weigh that it was because that other company had it for quite a few years and they couldn't do it. And it was done, and I believe divinely that we have it. And I believe God put you in charge of this, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, if you wouldn't mind speaking about it being divine, I think the backstory where you were working with the gentleman and he was kind of a competitor of yours, if you wouldn't mind speaking to that happened years before, where you were teaching him Stratlink. Do you remember? And then it came back around full circle, where he was the one who was looking for someone to advise the board.
Yeah, I'm trying to
that story right,
Maureen. Yeah, give me a couple other cues on that one. So it was a person.
Yeah, somebody that you worked with in finance, where you were teaching him the strategy that your dad had taught you, the Stratlink. And somebody called you into their office and said, hey, he's basically a competitor, but you were teaching him. And then years later, as I heard, that was the person who reached out to you about the biotech company that needed somebody on their board and asked you if you were available.
Yeah. So I'm with you now. Sorry, that just took me a minute to catch up to you. When I was in the financial services business, I worked very closely with lots of top, what I would call boutique investment advisors that ran their own RIAs, which are investment advisory firms. And I would teach a strategy process that my dad would teach me. And the gentleman one of the gentlemen really grabbed onto it and like tripled his business and was really disciplined, had high vitamin D. Years later, he called me back and said, would you ever be willing to come teach that process to a company I've invested in? And that was the biotech company that had these patents. So if you can imagine, I'm now going to, almost as a favor, to meet this biotech company from an individual that I had done some work for years ago, and I invited my dad to go. My dad had run a biotech company for 4 years. He had retired from the consumer packaged goods world, did some consulting work, and was asked to run a biotech subsidiary of a large beef producer in America. And I said, he had just finished that run, and I called him and I said, hey, I'm going to go do a consulting gig for a biotech company. Do you want to go? And we went together. And it was just interesting that that was the trigger for us to meet. The entire tech platform was because of my dad's strategy process. And really, I think about that all the time, that had we not done that and invested in that process with that company, which was essentially where the patents were, and to my dad's credit, he saw it very quickly that what this was. But it was born of that strategy process. I'm not sure if that's what you were referring to, Maureen, but that's what came to mind as you're talking about it. And you think about life and choice points and moments in time, and the notion that each day is a rebirth, right? Each day is a new opportunity to start over again, and you've got to seize those moments. I genuinely almost didn't go to that meeting. To my dad's credit, I dismissed this product as crazy, and my dad was curious. And that's another whole story of what the difference is between being dismissive about something rather than being curious about it. I think curiosity is the great reason why this company's here. My dad became curious, and he was willing to spend time. At 69 years old, had enough money to play golf and do nothing else, but he was driving himself and was curious all the time. And when he found this, to his credit, he was willing to invest of his heart and mind into it and push forward. And it was definitely not a high probability venture from my perspective. He was playing from possibility. And yet my dad was the guy, Jim, that when he was wrong, he was never in doubt. And that's a bad guy to have as your dad. The idea that I might be wrong, but I'm not in doubt. And I'd be like, Dad, you can't be so confident all the time. And he was just like, I believe, let's go. We're doing this. And he's my hero for that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I just love that connection from years before, what goes around comes around type of thing. So really pretty cool. So, would you speak a little bit, we were talking a little bit about network marketing, and there does seem to be a little bit of a stigma, but our company is what you refer to as next level marketing. And I know you went through this with Alan Noble just a couple of weeks ago, but if you wouldn't mind touching on that, because I think there is a real distinct difference between our company and what we're trying to do and the legacy that we're trying to commit to and to build relative to other companies that are in the same sphere.
Yeah, I shared this with Alan, and I'll abbreviate a little bit for you guys. The thought was early on, is there a way to do this that's got a soul? So if a corporation, corporeal is the word, it has a body, can we do this with a soul? And from the very beginning, I've just thought, what a remarkable engine for us to influence and impact for good around the world if we'll keep our priorities and our emphasis in balance. And the very first part of this was this notion that, do you place your motivations and commitments to your own ego and your own money or economics higher than your commitment to truth and principles? And it's a really interesting self-audit if you're willing to do it and be honest about it. Are you driven and motivated more by money or ego than you are by truth, which I would refer to as principles, right? And what I've learned in my career, largely in the financial services space, Jim, was that, I would watch people that would keep principles and truth as a higher motivating force in their life than just the money or just their ego. And they had longevity. And then I watched people that would place high ego and economic motivations above truth, that would literally be willing to lie to their grandmother, to make a sales number or, to do something. And they were flashes in pans, but they never endured. And they would bounce from company to company. And so I started years ago, long before ASEA, I started saying, what is that relationship between ego and economic motivation and principle? I'm not trying to say that it's wrong to have economic motivations. By no means. I'm a capitalist. I want to build business. I want to grow a business. But like, what happens when an industry as good as ours starts to let the calling card of the industry be money, to the point where that's the only deciding factor of what anyone does? So early on with my dad, I said, look, let's do this differently. If strategy is different, strategy is differentiation. How do you compete in a crowded space? You have to differentiate yourself. Well, if everyone is overemphasizing the money, what if we overemphasize really what's the truth of it, which is the principles of human development, kindness, and what really drives us? And as you get older and your desires get educated, is the way I say it. All of us are getting older, and what we desired when we were younger gets educated. And you move forward and you desire things differently because you're more mature and you understand that life is not just about these shiny things, but you realize it is about kindness and compassion and humanity. And it's about honesty and integrity and principles. And so I started auditing the industry as a whole. And I want to be fair. I think there's great players in this industry, but I do think there were long stretches of time that have bled into today where the high ground of what this business can do, lifting people out of a situation or circumstance that's negative, giving people hope with products that are struggling to find balance or health or hope again in their lives. What beautiful delivery to people of what they need. But the industry was wrapping all that with a very self-centered, what I would call ecosystem, not an ecosystem. And the ecosystems always are about me. And what's interesting is an ecosystem, if it's overfed, will always create broader problems for the collective group that no one wants. And you can think about it 100 times over. Ecosystems, right, come from the Greek word oikos, which means the whole house. And what I love about our business, and especially our companies, I think we're all genuinely here interested in the idea of an ecosystem, meaning the whole house, and that the decisions we make on a daily basis affect others. And so keeping a certain degree of humility, keeping a certain degree of commitment to the idea that I'm not just solving for X where X equals me, but I'm solving for something bigger. And so next level marketing for me was a way to say, if multi-level marketing is the way this industry refers to itself, what if we just divorced ourselves completely from MLM and we embrace this idea of what next level marketing would be? Less about, this downline organization that I can make money from, and more about what would next level look like? Well, I know we have next level products, period. Like, I'll arm wrestle anybody over that right now. Nobody has the product sets we have. They are next level, right? What happens if the culture and the spirit or ethos of our company were next level, where we were genuinely trying to, instead of focusing on income, we were paying great attention to become. Instead of focusing on transactions, getting someone to buy something, we were genuinely investing in transformations. What if we were no longer overly concerned about being able to present our information to someone else so we can get them to do something, but now we're just being present and trying to do something for them? And it seems obvious, but it's like at the core of every major philosophical or theological movement in the world. It's get off yourself and turn your attention outward from a place of authenticity and empathy. Well, what happens when you do that in a world where everyone's running around pulling selfies and wanting to promote, right? We're living in a very interesting world that is very egocentric. Well, what if you have really next level products, but your approach to marketing those products is next level in the sense that you carry yourself with a quiet confidence? You're not trying to convince someone, you're trying to be convicted and believe. And when you believe and marry deep, abiding belief with high activity, you're never on trial and you win, period. You will win. But you've got to let the carrot grow. And by that, I mean, I used to plant a garden in my backyard, and my little boy would come in, and I'd come home from work and I'd see dirt on the kitchen table and 2 little tiny carrots and a green sprig coming out the top. My 4-year-old would be so excited because he was with me planting the garden. So he would run out in the backyard, and almost every night I'd come home from work, and it was Caleb, my little towhead, beautiful boy, and he would run in, and I'd come in, and he'd be out playing, and there'd be 3 little tiny carrots and 3 sprigs on the table. So I'd have to walk him out, and I'd say, you got to leave the carrot in the garden. Even though you see that little green sprig, you got to give it some time. And he was just so excited that something was growing that he thought, okay, the carrot's ready. And I think we do that in our lives. I think we're running around pulling carrots up all the time when we got to, wait a minute, stay the course, right? Let that carrot grow. People that aren't having a product, okay, stay with the product, stay with it, let the carrot grow. Don't pull it up and check it every time, or you're never going to give it the chance it needs. So the idea of human beings too are like that. And I just think the greatest underutilized resource in the world is not oil or any number of other natural resources. It's the human resource. It's people. And if we can treat people with respect and value and recognize the inherent native and latent potential they have, and then create an environment where they can invest in that potential without fear of failure or being ridiculed or overly risk assumptive for them, so they've got a shot. Then an ethos or spirit or culture would emerge, teaching them the right way to market. And I'll be honest, it's going to take a little longer to do it right, but it's going to last longer, and it's going to change you in the process. So that's a little bit of a riff about that and what it meant.
Cool.
Well, that fits. My word of the year is extraordinary. And I read a quote. The gentleman said, the ripple effects of small things becomes extraordinary. I'm thinking about ASEA and how extraordinary it is, how different it is than those ordinary kind of companies. And at the end of the quote, he said, man is the most extraordinary computer of them all. So, the importance of people and reminding people how extraordinary they are or what they will become if they would just, share the product, use the product, let this grow, like you said. So thank you.
And we're at the top of the hour, Tyler, and I want you to please, I believe we have next level ownership.
Oh, thanks.
We have you.
Thanks.
We have the other owners of the company, but could you please, with my background as a stockbroker and having been part of IPOs, taking companies public, and that was one of the first questions I would ask. If you're going public, how much of the ownership will the original owners retain? This will not go that route. And I think that's critically important to understand the legacy of what we have. This is a home that you can come and stay for a very long time. Is that important to you?
It's fundamental. I mean, it's almost every day that we're talking about it. So, there's a lot packed in that comment. Number one is, what is the financial situation of the enterprise? If you mismanage finances and you get yourself overexposed to leverage or manage cash or other things inappropriately, then you're forced into giving away control, and you're forced into decisions that frankly not only put the business as a whole at risk, they put your individual business at risk. So my view is an enormous stewardship of mine is to be managing this in such a way. And I like to think of it as widening the moat around the castle, being very careful that no one, after all these years of building this castle, can come storm it and just overnight take all that toil and effort and sweat and mess with it. So no outside investors are involved in this from an institutional perspective. No private equity, no banks. There's no institutional debt from the banking side to speak of in terms of long-term debt. What that should tell someone who's looking at this with an eye of, is this the place to be? What it means is, we control our destiny, and no one can kind of come in and force my hand and say, you need to do this because we've got debt here and we're controlling you. We have no entity that has any covenants or any controlling dynamics there. We're probably a little too conservative sometimes in the way that we manage this, but I don't judge the success of a business how quickly it grows. I judge the success of a business of how steadily over time it grows and sustains and is still here. And this industry today, right now, as we speak, I've had things emailed to me showing me huge names in this industry that are in a massive free fall. And I believe it's because there's a fatigue on founders that they start stripping cash out and they start making very self-centered decisions. I've seen that happen several times. They lose the trust and confidence of the relationship they have with all of you because they make unilateral decisions and moves that hurt people and force people to question the integrity and partnership. And then you look at it through the lens of viability and sustainability. And we live in a very complex global business environment right now. There's geopolitics, there's obviously war happening, there's a lot of moving parts, and we almost are paranoid about it to make sure that, the analogy I think I've used with many of you is that if you're willing to climb a tree and it's my tree, then I've got to make sure the branches don't break. I want to be a branch that's not going to break. I want to be a tree you can climb confidently, because it's not your own business per se, as much as we say that a lot. It's actually a partnership with me and you. And so I've got to be trustworthy. I've got to be someone that you feel confident, hey, I'm going to give my time and energy to this because I'm not making the commission payments into Europe. I'm not shipping the product into, dozens of different places. So you've got to have that confidence. And I think it's unfair for me or other companies to take advantage of the trust and confidence of a single mom who's trying to make an extra $300 a month or $500 a month, not understanding perhaps, the dynamics of this, and that, it can be risky for them. And so we've have people in here almost monthly from other companies that tell me the horror stories that I built this really meaningful business there, and then the chalk lines on the field moved, the goalpost moved, my compensation was altered on a formula, and before you know it, they're saying, wait a minute, I built this entire thing and now it's shaky. So we just take it seriously, and we run a good, healthy business. And I think that's something that when you're partnering with us, you would want to know. And I think it adds to the risk comments that Lee was making. I think it plays to the idea that we plan to be here. So
We're thankful.
Yeah. And when people think of any business, Tyler, there's risk to every business, whether it's networking, whether it's any business, ice cream shop. It doesn't matter what it is. There's risk to everything, and you have to be able to analyze and rate that risk. So, Maureen, is there anything you want to add? This has been awesome.
Yeah.
It has been awesome. And I just want to say, Tyler, there's nobody I'd rather be in business with than you. I mean, I
Amen.
can't say you and your family and your integrity and just your commitment to us.
You know what? That's kind of you to say. And the fact of the matter is we blow it every day. We're trying. I don't think anyone's perfect, but we have you guys in mind all the time. And we're trying to build something sustainable. We have something so unique, and it deserves our best efforts. And really the hero of this company and the miracle of this company are you and the people on this call. It's so true. This would just be in a bottle somewhere stuck if it wasn't mobilized by the beautiful people in this company. And one of my favorite definitions of leadership is the art of mobilizing a group of people to want to struggle for a shared aspiration. And you think about the art of mobilizing a group of people. You guys are artists. It's an artistic thing to be able to mobilize a group of people, to get, 500 people on a call and to be sharing information. That's an art of mobilizing a group of people to want to struggle for a shared aspiration. Think about the unbelievable contribution of time and energy and effort and soul and heart that you are bringing to this company. In very real terms, you're the champions of this company, and we will never lose sight of that, because that's the truth. You're kind to us, but those of you doing what you're doing right now tonight, inviting me to participate in this, that's the art of mobilizing a group of people to want to struggle for a shared aspiration. And that's leadership. And
Tyler, I think it also speaks to your leadership from a humility point of view, because it's a rare place where you can go these days, in my view. and find people who are servant leaders and who have the, the interest in other people, so they're, and I'll say, as one who knows a thing or two about the science, I've spent many hours looking at the science, obviously, at least a few minutes, right? I'm so grateful that we have that type of leadership as well, who's not creating something that's just kind of an I don't know what to call it. It would be false, fake, or it would be less than complete. This is, I wrote that these are the deepest cell signaling molecules ever discovered, and the fact that we are marketing, we are in a market that deals at that level and not something that's coming through a side door, kind of as an afterthought. That really is a great foundation that validates and puts a lot of legs under this, and I love that. That's obviously a main reason why myself and many continue to toil, struggle, and try to get that vitamin D thing going, is because we've got that, and that's always there. And if you didn't have that, then it's just hype.
Mm-hmm. That's well said.
Yeah.
You guys are amazing.
This was amazing.
Yeah, my deepest wishes for all of you to have a happy new year. I'm humbled that you invited me to participate tonight. And, I spoke from the heart. I don't have any notes or anything, and hopefully I didn't leave anything off that you hoped we covered. But for those of you that are listening and have joined us and are still here, thank you so much for who you are and what you do. I believe one of the single greatest act of friendship you may offer to someone someday may be told to you was sharing ASEA. And when you think about that, the single greatest act of friendship might be this. And I have people that have called me and said, had you not done that, I wouldn't have been able to do what I do today. So you're investing in friendships around the world, and you're mobilizing people to work together, and it's amazing. So thank you for letting me join you tonight.
Thank
you, Tyler. And
Beautiful.
guys, we have a great show lined up for you next week. We have one of the most beloved field leaders in the world, and his name is Alan Noble. And he will be joining us next week to carry on this conversation of the possibility of what this means for the whole world. So, Tyler, thank you.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, it's just amazing what you've been able to do for us, and we're just so thankful.
The feelings are mutual. Happy New Year.
Send our love to the family.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
All right, guys, the
Bye.
video recording will be up on redoxmatters.com shortly. And so we thank you very much, and we'll see you back next week. God bless.
Again.
Bye.
Happy New Year.
Thank you
Thanks.
again, Tyler.
In Utah.
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.